I believe that the differentiation between nature and nurture is decision. And when I think about as human beings, we have certain proclivities that, we will just do. Ultimately, we all are in the seeking of pleasure. So we're either moving towards pleasure or we're moving away from pain. But one of the problems is when pain becomes your level, your precursor, your nomenclature for communication, pain, violence, hurt, neglect, abuse, that becomes your understanding of communication.
Welcome to the show, Disruptors. I'm your host, Aaron Hale, and this is Point of Impact. And wow is all I can think of. I I don't have the vocabulary. I'm not loquacious enough. I'm not eloquent enough to have the words to describe the experience that is the interview you're about to hear. Laying it on a bit thick. I don't think so, but you be the judge. Michael Anthony Unbroken is a globally recognized speaker. He's an award-winning podcast host, a best-selling author, and life-changing trauma coach. And he's sharing a shocking and inspiring story. His journey, uh, what he survived, he endured as a child, and what he put himself through as an adult. That's the shocking part. And how he decided that he was no longer going to be a victim and he was going to change himself and his life into what he deserved. That's the inspiring part. He is a beacon for resilience. His podcast and his book, both called Think Unbroken, and that's what he is, unbroken. And now he's changing lives all over the world. Before we get into it, do me one quick favor. This is my only ask. Help me feed the beast, the algorithm. Give the show 5 stars, a thumbs up. Make sure you're following and subscribing on all the platforms. Leave it a comment, a review. Tell others how great you think this episode with Michael Anthony Unbroken is, and even take the link and share it. Send it in a text to 2 or 3 of your friends. What happens is kind of one hand washes the other. The more we can get it out to a broader audience, the more get to benefit from guests as amazing as Michael. And the more we can attract awesome guests, just Michael Anthony Unbroken. Buckle up because this is an awesome one. Michael Unbroken, I'm so excited to speak with you today. Welcome to Point of Impact.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm excited to be here with you, man.
I don't know if you can match my excitement because you've got an incredible story. You're doing such an amazing work. And, well, tell you what, as a bit of an introduction, you are your own podcast, you're an author, you're a life coach for survivors of childhood trauma, but you kind of have a PhD in your own trauma, and you take us back to the early days of Michael before he was unbroken.
Yeah. I always say this, Aaron. I hope that people don't hear my story and then say, well, my story's not as bad as his. We all have, you know this as well as anybody, dude. We all have our own journey. So I grew up in Indianapolis in the 80s. My mother was a drug addict and alcoholic. She actually cut off my right index finger when I was only 4 years old. She married my stepfather, who was this incredibly abusive guy, 6'4", 220, would beat me and my little brothers up. Like literally, he's such a coward of a man. And we spent most of our childhood homeless and deeply in poverty. I lived with over 30 families between the time I was 8 to 12. And when I was 12, I was living in an abandoned house. My mother had disappeared. We come to find out she had randomly moved to Florida and married some guy. um Wild. And then I was living in this abandoned house. My grandmother found out and came and adopted me. Now, Aaron, in some sense that is a godsend, right? But I am biracial, I am black and white, and my grandmother was an old racist white lady from a town in Tennessee you never heard of. So you could imagine the identity crisis that I was stepping into, right? And I started getting high every day, smoking weed, popping pills. By 13, I was getting drunk every day, and I got kicked out of 2 high schools. Eventually, did not graduate. Effectively, they handed me the diploma, and my summer school teacher literally says to me, "We are done with you. It's obvious you don't want to be here. We'll let the streets figure you out." And I, at that time, I was lost, like most kids are anyway, because when you're 16, 17, 18, you have no idea what reality is. And then I had this on top of it. And the only thing that I had wanted to do was to go and be a Marine Corps scout sniper. I blame Tom Berenger for that. There was a movie called Sniper that I was obsessed with as a kid. I literally have seen that movie 100 times. But I have asthma, and I had destroyed my knee my senior year of high school wrestling, and so they wouldn't let me in. And I didn't know what to do with my life. And so at 18, after not getting in the military, getting kicked out of high school again, and getting fired from a warehouse job, I sat in my car one night and I just started asking myself, like, dude, what the hell? What are you doing here? You need a plan. And at that point, Aaron, I never had a mentor. I never had a guide. I had a couple of coaches. Obviously, I played sports, but I never had a man to sit down with me and square my shit away, right? And so I made this decision. I was like, I have to make 100 grand a year. That was the goal. I was like, I need to make 100 grand a year legally by the time I'm 21. And the legal part was very important because I have family literally in prison for life to this day. My 3 childhood best friends have been murdered, and I have been in handcuffs more times than I can count. And so, like, I knew the path, and I needed to interrupt it. And so skills have utility, started learning skills, started growing in business, landed in a management position of a fast food place when I was 18 and a half. Dude, I was making $36,000 a year at 18, almost 20 years ago. That's like $1 million back then. That wasn't enough. That wasn't my goal. My goal is 100 grand a year. I ended up landing a job at a Fortune 10 company doing sales for a company everyone in America has heard of. I made my first 6 figures the year I turned 21. And by the time I was 26, I had completely destroyed my entire life. I was 350 pounds, smoking 2 packs a day, drinking myself to sleep, cheating on my girlfriend, high from the moment I woke up till I went to bed. My little brother tells me, "Do not talk to me. You are not my brother." I'm $50,000 in debt, and my car got repoed twice. And so I chased this idea, but the thing that I hadn't done, I didn't realize that dreams without clarity will destroy your life. And so at 26, I was at rock bottom, and I just started doing the work. I just went to war with myself. I invested every penny I didn't have because I was 50 grand in debt into myself. And I just pulled myself out of obesity, out of addiction, out of chaos. I left Indiana, moved to Oregon, worked with the one of the best childhood trauma therapists in the world. And 15 years later, bro, here I am. Almost 15. We're getting there.
There's so much there, but that's an awful place to start from. You're you were getting it from every direction: mental, physical. the abuse, but it seemed like you caught a glimpse of what could be. But how did you even change your perspective, that paradigm? I mean, your entire childhood, that was your world. You're being told that that's all you're going to be, and this is all that was available to you. How did you figure out that you didn't have to live by you didn't have to put hand you were dealt?
I I think there are probably three factors. One, I am a contrarian by nature. I hate being told what to do. Like this is why I can't work for people. This is why I'm an entrepreneur, because I literally hate being told what to do. Um, I have always been that way.
That would have been difficult to be in the Marines then, I think.
Yeah. Well, but that's part of the reason why I needed to. Because I was JROTC, Army, and Navy growing up between the two high schools I went to. And I really thrived when I was in those places. So, it seems counterintuitive, but it felt like the thing that was going to like free me from the chaos of my own life. Um, but you're spot on, and no one's actually ever made that acknowledgement. So that's a beautiful acknowledgement. But that was one. I'm a contrarian. Two, being a homeless child sleeping in vans or halfway houses or women's shelters or any of the random families that we stayed with or my own relatives or friends of friends of friends. I mean, you never knew, right? But I was exposed to a different kind of life. I saw so many families that had love and compassion, and they didn't yell at each other, and they didn't beat their kids, and there was food on the table and electricity. And so being exposure, right? It was exposure that helped me understand, like, oh wait, there's something different here. Now at that age I didn't understand it, right? It would take me still a long time to recognize that. And then the third thing, I have always just felt that if I put my mind to something, I could do it. And I remember we were I think I was 13. My mother had come back from Florida and her random marriage, and she was actually sober for probably the first time I ever remember her being sober. And she took me and my brothers to the Dollar Movie. If you remember back in the day, you can go to the movies for $1. And I mean, that was like a big deal because we never got to do stuff like that. And we went to see The Matrix. And Aaron, this is a completely true story. I remember sitting there watching that movie in the Dollar Theater with my mother and my two little brothers. And I was like, we are in the Matrix. This is where we live. This is the reality of the life that we have. And and even to this day, I still believe it. It's like, I firmly believe that if you can just get mentorship, if you can make your mind up about something, if you can put yourself in a position of challenging the narrative of who you believe you are, if you can go hard, dude, it's so much of it is like go until you can't go anymore. Show up until it shows up. And I saw that in that film. And so those things, while now I can look at that in retrospect and understand it deeper, but at 18 and 19 and 20, 21, when I was just trying to figure it out, and then again even at 25 when I was just trying to figure it out, and now at almost 39 trying to figure it out, I just have always really had this sense of belief in myself. And what it comes down to, Aaron, this is one of the things I teach my clients. If you don't believe in yourself, who will?
Excellent point. Throughout this childhood, while you were growing up, you're uh, getting it from all sides. Nobody really has any faith in your future. What was like your high school experience? Were there just glimpses of aha moments or little changes that taught you that you could do a little bit more if you tried or thought a different way?
I think that there were two. coaches I had that I bring up pretty frequently. I actually mentioned both of them in my first book, Mr. Hollingsworth and Mr. Brown. In high school, I had started to blossom a little bit because I was just this socially awkward, weird, super strange kid growing up. And even until probably my sophomore year. And that's because, if you grow up and the way that you interact with humans is by being a chameleon and adopting to them, everyone thinks you're fake all the time. But I didn't understand because I wasn't allowed to be myself. Like growing up in my home, the most dangerous thing I could do is have an opinion, is to talk about my needs. The fastest way for my stepdad to kick my ass for literally anything was to exist. Like the dude was a monster. And so I learned how to shut off. But around my sophomore year of high school, he had been out of my life for 3 or 4 years at this point. My mother was back into her addiction. I actually put a restraining order on her. My grandmother was in a coma. And so I was actually taking care of me and my little brother living in this house by ourselves. And I just, to tell you the truth, I just stopped caring what people thought about me. I just completely stopped caring. But because of sports, when I was eligible, I had a couple of amazing coaches who, one of them actually sat down with me. Mr. Hollingsworth one day sat down with me and he goes, "You're probably the most intelligent student I have ever taught. You are not supposed to be here." And that has literally, it sticks with me to this day. It literally sticks with me to today because it was such a powerful thing because I never had anyone believe in me, and I certainly never had a man believe in me, right? And that's a big deal for a teenage boy. And so between that and then also one of the things that I remember just vividly having this experience of is like I was good at sports. I was captain of the football team, captain of the wrestling team. I had won multiple tournaments as a wrestler. I had a ton of awards. I kind of just had this idea like I just got to make it out of this. And the thing is, as a weird kid, all kids are weird, but as an incredibly socially awkward kid, it was strange because I only ever had one nickname in high school, and my nickname was Coach. And I was always the kid on the sideline, like rooting on my team and trying to get people to go to the next level and being like, we can do this. The irony of the nickname of Coach is that kids used it against me as an insult. Fast forward 20 something years, people pay me tens of thousands of dollars to coach them. It's changed my life. It's helped me write books, do podcasts, have these conversations. Yeah, it's interesting that has happened. And the thing that I just tied into in high school, which I still believe with all of my heart, by the way, is that it doesn't actually matter. The only thing I knew is I just needed to get out. And so I'm out here in the streets, dude. I'm selling drugs at night. I'm working a job at a Hollywood video trying to make things look legitimate because people are like, where are you getting all this money from? I'm taking care of my little brother, but my grandma's in this coma. We're by ourselves. We're children. I'd grown up so fast that to me, high school was a joke. I was just trying to get through it.
That sounds like a pretty awful experience. Did you learn anything positive through the early formative years?
Yeah, what's interesting is I learned that people are good. That's a really weird that it sounds like an odd thing to say, but people are good inherently. Like I think that the old adage hurt people hurt people, we all can agree with that. I don't think that's anything new. But what I will say is that there's a lot of beauty in the world. I see it all the time, man. I see it in my clients, I see it in my friends, I see it in my community. And when I was young, here's an intro. I don't think I've ever told this story, Aaron. As an adult, I love watches. I love them. It's one of the things that make me feel like a man. And when I was, I think, 10, I uh I got a watch for Christmas. And it was probably like a Walmart Seiko watch that was $30, right? But for me as a 10-year-old boy, that was like a massive deal. And when I was 15 in high school, or 16, I think I was 16, I had bought this watch called the Fossil Gunmetal. And this watch was like $200. That's a crap ton of money when you're 15. And somebody stole it out of my locker. And what was so interesting about that moment is that I realized, like, even though that watch was stolen, and even though there are these bad moments that happen, pretty much right after that, I got kicked out of high school. Here's why I'm telling you this story. So I get kicked out of high school. My watch had got stolen. Life is kind of chaotic. I feel like the world is against me. Here's why I got kicked out of high school. I got caught selling weed. And so even though I was an athlete and trying to do all these things, I got kicked out of school for selling weed. A couple days goes by. I get a call at home, and my grandmother says, "You need to come and answer the phone. Someone wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Okay." So I get on the phone, and it is the social worker at my high school I just got kicked out of. And she said, "You need to come to the school. There's someone here who wants to talk to you." Aaron, I thought I was about to get arrested for selling that weed because I didn't get busted with the weed on me, luckily. And I was like, man, they must have had a camera that saw me get rid of it. Like, so I'm about to go to jail. That was my thought. And I was like, all right, well, guess better go deal with this. I go to school. Counselor asked me to come and sit in the library. And this woman named Miss Rainey comes up. She sits down across from me. She introduces herself and she goes, "You've been volunteered for a last chance program. You don't have to do this. You do not have to do this. You can walk out of here and whatever happens, happens. But I want you to know something. Somebody here believes in you enough that you're going to get one more opportunity. But this is your last opportunity. And if you choose to take this opportunity, which is your choice," she was very adamant about this. It was kind of the first time I ever had control of my own decision making. She goes, "If you choose to take this opportunity, you're going to go into this last chance program and you're going to learn how to write resumes, how to write cover letters, how to write on a computer. You're going to type on a computer. You're going to learn how to build a computer. You're going to get actual skills that you can take into the marketplace." Because it's very, and she said this, she goes, "It's very obvious high school's not for you." And so even though all those bad things had happened, I got kicked out of school, I got kicked off the wrestling team, my watch got stolen, all of these things that were negative had happened, this moment of good was there. And I took advantage of that. And that's one of the reasons that I've been able to be a budding business owner and entrepreneur and all the things that I've done. But it was such a it was such a incredible moment because it's the moment that I realized that there is balance in the universe, and that with all of the good, there is still bad, and with all of the dark, there is still light. And that moment is really one of them that helped me understand how to navigate even the hardest things that happen. Because, Aaron, I'll tell you right now, worse shit has happened than that in my life. And that moment is really, really one of the most important for me because it made me understand that when I got into that program, I did the work. I ended up getting straight A's. I'd never done this before. I got a job. I learned how to write resumes and cover letters. I had my first girlfriend. Things were going super well. And I realized in that moment for the first time that if I do the things I know I'm supposed to do, I get the outcomes that I can expect that I deserve.
What is it about watches? I think it's like male jewelry. I'm the same way. In fact,
Totally.
I had my love, that I guess phase when I was younger with fossils. I actually I bought a fossil pocket watch. Thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Uh, but do you know who? nominated you for this program?
I still to this day don't know. They wouldn't tell me actually. I remember asking and they wouldn't tell me, but I have a very sneaky suspicion that it was um, our English teacher because I had a A in her class and I had F's in all the rest. Dude, I had an F in gym. As an athlete, I had an F in gym because I never came.
Okay, so there was another thing I noticed. I have been that phrase has been popping up recently. Hurt people hurt people. I've heard it a couple times this week. And do you think where's the line between nurture and nature, right? The how do you break that chain of events, right? Would you pass it on to the next generation? What has happened to you? So, how much of it was in your mother's control, your stepdad's, and how did you even recognize it in yourself?
Dude, you asked literally the best questions. Um, I believe that the differentiation between nature and nurture is decision. And when I think about as human beings, we have certain proclivities that, I mean, we will just do. Ultimately, we all are in the seeking of pleasure, right? So we're either moving towards pleasure or we're moving away from pain. But one of the problems is when pain becomes your level, your precursor, your nomenclature for communication, pain, violence, hurt, neglect, abuse, that becomes your understanding of communication. And then that has a trickle down effect. And that carries into your children and your children's children. When I look at understanding what my mother went through my grandmother and her husband, what my stepfather went through with his mother and his father, what I can only imagine that they went through, right? And it's this generational thing and you look down the line, you go back time and time again and it's like nobody made the decision to do something different because I said the difference between nature and nurture is decision. So nobody decided to do anything different until someone did. Now, look, a part of that is economic. You cannot, I mean, you have to look at that. You cannot not take that into factor. I mean, we were dirt poor, dirt poor. We were the poorest family in the neighborhood, no question. My grandmother was dirt poor. She grew up on a farm in the middle of Tennessee with no electricity, no running water, no toilet, right? You go back further than that, and her family were immigrants from Ireland, right? And so you see that. And then on my father's side, you can go down the path of slave trade and look at all of those things. At some point, you are set up for failure. Let's acknowledge it and call it what it is. Now, there are people who choose to be victims. I'm using the word choice intentionally here, especially today. Today, we have more access to information. We have more access to technology. We have more access to building the life that you want to have than any time, literally, in human history. We've never been this prepared to be successful while simultaneously so unsuccessful. It's mind-boggling to me. And I believe that in order to, he asked me, how do you break the cycle? I think that you have to, it's not about just doing the work, right? It's not just about going to therapy. It's not just about getting a coach. It's about how do you carry yourself in the day to day? What are your values as a man and as a woman? How do you contribute to society? What are you teaching your children? How are you understanding, male and feminine dynamics? How do you create a space of not only learning and healing, but also of doing? Aaron, I know so many people who have read every damn book under the sun and listened to all the podcasts, and they don't do shit with their lives, right? A lot of that's fear. They're terrified of the idea of becoming them. And so you have to effectively break the habits of yourself, of your family, of your genealogy to create change in the world, to become the person you're capable of becoming. And then once you do that, that's the first kind of slowdown of the cycle. And then it's like, okay, well, what kind of children do you want to bring in the world? And how do you want to educate them? And how do you discipline them effectively? And how do you do all of these things? Right. And ultimately, I don't think that there's an easy answer to how do you break the cycle. I think we still have a lot of issues that are beyond just the systemic issues. I believe that we have a lot of issues that are within our DNA. You know, you grow up in a traumatic home, and so did their parents, and so did their parents. You go back 7 generations. You know, you can look this up. This is real data. We carry 7 generations of DNA in our body. You can't tell me that you're not carrying things that happen to your ancestors, right? And so there's this process that you have to sit in front of where you recognize, and if you're telling yourself the truth, that perhaps you came into this journey of life, even though you may or may not have chosen it, depending on who you're asking, you may have come into this life with your back against the wall. Great. Let's acknowledge it. Let's call it what it is. Cool. Your back was against the wall. You came in to nothing. The world is against you. Terrible things have happened. And you can, you're allowed to. Let me put it this way. You are allowed to be a victim. Dude, I'm not taking that from anyone. I'm not. Life is hard. Life kicks you in the face. Life takes everything you've ever wanted. Life at the end of the day is going to leave you dead. Life is hard. And it's like, okay, well, are you going to be a victim or are you going to rise above it? And it's so difficult because being a victim is very easy. And trust me, I played the victim. I did it effectively well. I blame the whole world for every problem that I had in my life. It was always everyone's fault but Michael's fault. And let me be clear, I'm not taking culpability for what my parents did or what they didn't do. I'm just simply looking at the impact of my own actions in the moments of awareness in which I made decisions that destroyed my life. And in that, I'm just simply acknowledging the role that I've played. And I think that if you are willing to acknowledge your role and you do something different, that's where you break the cycle.
That's an excellent way to look at it. In fact, life
Yeah,
literally
man.
kicked me in the face. So that was a great analogy. But when you talk about accepting responsibility and whether you're going to be the victim, you're not you're not denying what happened to you, and you're not taking the fault away from those who did it to you. But at some point, you've got to say, then what? Are you going to play the victim? And then where does that lead? So, okay, this happened to
Mm-hmm.
you, then what? When you're talking about making the decision, I also I was thinking about today's day and age, and talking about how much information we've got, and we've got tons of knowledge out there that's right at your fingertip. But there's also a ton of crap. It's like the world's uh, largest
Mm-hmm.
candy store. That's our new addiction. Now our brains are overloaded with this dopamine. It's literally the same effect as the other types of uh, abuse, alcohol abuse, drug abuse. To your brain, that screen is creating that
Mm-hmm.
decision fatigue. So when it comes to the hard stuff, the real inward looking type of things. Are we too tired to do the hard work?
I I tell my clients this sometimes. I'm like, you don't need to do healing today. Just go live. Just get away from don't listen to another podcast, don't journal, don't meditate, don't do yoga, just go live. Do whatever you need to do today, just don't worry about this cuz like sometimes like the reality is it's overwhelming. You can open Pandora's box very easily in this journey. And I think where you source your information from is very important as well. I mean, there are certain people in the world, like while I do my best to hear multiple sides of everyone's conversation, I still don't align with some people at all in any capacity. And I don't want to learn from them. But sometimes there's a nugget in there, you know? And so I think that we can get into this place where we're only hearing from the same sources all the time. And that in its own right can be exhausting. It's like I tell my clients all the time, don't listen to just me. Like go and explore and learn because I may not have the thing that you need in the moment. Right. Not that I can't help you solve the problem, but maybe you need to listen to Aaron today. Right. And I think one of the really interesting things about this is that because of the addictive nature of social media, something even I've fallen victim to, where it's like, man, I've posted 4,000 times, and we create all this content, and I've sent all these comments and DMs, and we build the business through it in a lot of ways. But man, sometimes I catch myself just watching the dumbest shit on there and just laughing for like 20 minutes, and I'm like, where did 20 minutes just go? And so I think it's just you've got to understand how to regulate your nervous system. You've got to understand how to pay attention to the dopamine hits. I interviewed this woman named Anna Lemke. Have you heard of her?
Anna Lemke?
Yeah, so she's a Stanford researcher. She wrote a book called Dopamine Nation. It's a phenomenal book, and it literally talks about that the number one driver that we have as human beings is the dopamine hit.
Hmm.
And so we all chase our drug differently. We all have it, whatever your drug is. You got one, I got one. It's not always maybe the bad things. Sometimes it's good things. Like you can probably go to jujitsu too much, right? And so it's really about understanding yourself. I think that's the goal at the end of the day.
Well, I think it's in understanding the mechanics behind it, the chemistry,
Yeah, agree.
and being able to step outside your behaviors to understand why. So uh, you kind of stepped outside the I guess the life plan or the path that was laid out for you, and you started to create this life for yourself. You set a goal of making $100,000 a year. You reached it, surpassed it. You had money, the cars. What was it that it was almost like repeating that cycle where your mom got sober and then went back to the bottle? It was like you had almost found the solution, and was it sabotage? Was it um, just hadn't learned all of the tools and processes and mindsets to do it right? When did it come crash down, and when did you realize what you were doing?
I think there's a tremendous number of factors into that. Again, a phenomenal question. I look at a couple of things. One, I look at the people that I was surrounded with during that time. Not a single one of my friends ever smacked me in the face and said, "Hey, you're being a fucking idiot." I could have used that desperately, Aaron. I needed a friend who would help me recognize that my behavior was not moral, was not integrous, was not of substantial proof of manhood. Because here it is. I did something that most people do not do in terms of business. I made $1 million by the time I was 25. I didn't know anyone else who made the money that I made, not even remotely close, except for my peers at work who were also in sales. And so, dude, it was crazy. You'd go in the parking lot and you would see The craziest cars, man. BMWs, Infinities, G Wagons, Land Rovers, Range Rovers. I had a Cadillac CTS, and like that was kind of the lifestyle. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We just happened to go and work in a corporate job. Because don't get it twisted, man. We went hard. Like we really partied. But there's a price you pay. I had all the girls, I had all the drugs, I had all the clothes, I had all the money. But here I am, man. I'm $50,000 in debt. Do you know how insane it is to make 200 grand a year and be 50 grand in debt? Like, you know how wild that is? You know how wild it is to have access to the best restaurants, fitness, trainers, nutrition, and be morbidly obese? To work for an insurance company and to be smoking cigarettes every day? Like, this is the thing. You live into what you're taught. Growing up, we were in debt constantly. Our water would get turned off, our electricity would get turned off. I got evicted. I don't even know how many times we got evicted. I mean, we were at one point literally living out of like trash bags, right? And then who smoked? Well, my mom smoked, my grandma smoked, my aunt smoked, my uncle smoked, everybody smoked. So I smoked. Everybody's fat, calling it what it is. They were all fat. My grandma had diabetes. My mom literally lost both of her legs to diabetes. So I'm fat and I'm looking at my life and I just realized one day. So I'm like 20, I'm about to be 26. It's like August. I'm about to be 26 and everything just sucks, man. Like everything just sucked. Like it was weird. I was in a dark place. And I was laying in bed one Saturday morning. Now, keep in mind, I'm 350 pounds. I'm laying in bed, smoking a joint, eating chocolate cake, and watching the CrossFit games. Like, like what the fuck is happening right now? And I pulled myself up out of bed and I looked at myself in the mirror in the bathroom. And Aaron, I'll be honest with you, man. I went to war with myself. The things that transpired in the next couple hours that day were not nice. They were not kind. They were not loving. They were not nurturing. But they were the things that I needed to pull myself out of my own bullshit. And what I realized that became one of the most pivotal moments of my entire life, that is the moment that has driven me to here, is that when I was 8 years old, the water company had come and turned our water off. Now, this is always happening. This wasn't new. Turned off our water, our heat, our electricity. We got evicted. This is just normal in my home. And this one particular day, I go in the backyard. I grab this little blue bucket. I walk across the street to our neighbor's house. I turn on the spigot on the side of their house without permission, mind you. And for the first time, I stole water at 8. I would do it many, many, many more times after this. And I remember in that moment saying to myself vividly, I remember it like it was yesterday, when I'm a grown up, this is not going to be my life. At 8 years old, I had that thought. And so here I am at 26. I'm living into what everyone told me I would be. My stepdad literally would call me fat, dumb, and lazy almost on a daily basis. Like he was a vicious human. My mother told me I was useless, that I didn't matter, that she wished she didn't have me. Right. And so what happens is, as in a child in their developmental phase, you pull all of that in. That becomes your understanding of self. And so even though I'm over here chasing all this money, super successful in business, great place to live, awesome car, it wasn't even sabotage, Aaron. A, I wouldn't have had the language for that to begin with. And B, I don't think people in sabotage, I think sabotage is intentional. I don't think you can self-sabotage unless you know you're self-sabotaging. And I didn't know. I was just living into what everyone told me I would be.
Sounds like your education.
Exactly. It is. I lived exactly what they said I was going to become. Now, I fought against it because I chased money and I didn't want to be homeless, but it was the same. Whether I was making 10 grand then or 200 grand, then, it doesn't matter. It was the same outcome because I didn't yet understand and realize the truth that I was in control. I didn't have values. I didn't have morals. I didn't have a community of people around me. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a dude. If I could go back in time and if I would have hired a coach or a mentor when I was 21, I'd be a fucking billionaire today. you know? And it's like you look at those moments, and obviously I say that in jest, but I look at my life today and it's not anywhere remotely close to what it was. And the reason why is because I decided to become me. This journey, whether we like it or not, is literary fiction, right? Life is all make believe, dude. This stuff is like so crazy. You can do whatever you want. You really can. And in the literary fiction, there's this idea and concept in the narrative about you versus you, and literary writings of all sorts. You are your own worst enemy, and you are your own best hero. Here's how I think about life today. Life is very simply a movie. You are the writer, you are the director, and you are the actor. And whatever movie you want to be is the movie you're going to live. And I've been the villain. Trust me. I've been the villain. Dude, I've done things I will never publicly talk about because they are so bad. And I'm really scared I might go to jail for them. And I've been the victim where I destroyed everything and I blame the world. And I've been the victor. And I can promise you, it is way better over here. But here's the secret people don't actually know: it takes as much effort and energy to destroy your life as it does to create your life.
A lot better than weed, chocolate cake, and X Games.
My my favorite I swear to God this is true what I'm about to say. My favorite thing in the world, period. This is my ideal day, Aaron. Wake up whenever I wake up, smoke a joint, eat chocolate cake, grab the bag of gummy bears, sit on the couch, watch porn, play video games, order a pizza, hook up with some random girl I don't care about, get high again, go out, grab a couple drinks with the boys, make some money, and go to bed. That is my ideal day. But that ideal day is not the day of a man who is going to lie on his deathbed and know that he gave it all of his fucking energy. That is not the day of a man who is going to break the cycle, be a leader for his family, be a leader for his community, be a leader for the people. This is not the day of a man who is going to look in the mirror and love himself. This is not the day of a man who has standards and morals. This is not the day of a man who has made a decision to become himself.
It's a literal. It's a day literally like a one huge sugar high, and literally sugar. But the dopamine chase you're talking about is just trying to get the cheapest dopamine hits all day long, and at the very end, it's short lived and empty.
Come from a family of addicts, DNA, generational trauma. There is addiction in my bones, period. I love the high. I love it. But I'm telling you, man, if you can just change the things you love, there's a much of a hit of dopamine having this conversation with you right now as there is getting high, smoking weed, playing video games, hooking up with a stranger.
I was just thinking about how much more fulfilling, how much better it feels having rough house with my 5-year-old twins this morning, getting ready for daycare, and how much better that is than I did the same stuff. You know, when I was younger, smoked weed, drank too much, played video games, ate entire pizzas by myself, and would sit there sated, I forget, but for a short while, and then you come down, and then you come. It's the crash. Always, sometimes it's big, sometimes it's little, but there's always the crash, and there's never a crash with the fulfilling, the good kind of dopamine. The good kind of rewards that a value-based, fulfilling life gives you. I being the best dad I can to these boys, and you know, giving back the lessons I've learned, like you're doing. So, tell me, you was that the X Games moment? Was that your so-called rock bottom moment?
Yeah, I mean here's the thing is looking at the CrossFit games, right? You have these people who are incredibly fit and super strong chasing their dreams. Like Rocky is my favorite movie of all time. It used to come, can I ask you, Aaron, how old are you?
46.
Okay. So we both grew up similarly close in time. Back in the day on television, any given moment on one of the three channels you might have, like they would always like show Rocky. It would be on just constantly, or like
Mm-hmm.
Predator, or like these weird 80s action movies. And I would just watch them because, we didn't have like parents around, you just had like a TV you'd sit in front of. And like I remember like watching these X Games and being like, man, this is like Rocky. All these people are just trying to have their dream. And here my fat ass is laying on this bed, blaming the world for all my problems. And it wasn't necessarily the rock bottom moment, but it was just like there was just so much. Man, there was just so much destruction.
Mm-hmm.
So much just me burning everything down for so long that for whatever reason that moment it finally just clicked. I was probably within a short window of time close to either killing someone or killing myself or going to prison. I was drinking and driving. Dude, I was doing the wildest things, making all this money, acting like a moron. And I think that this moment was just an awakening moment because I realized, and man, this is the hard for me. This is the hardest realization as a man, and I think this is the hardest realization that any man will ever have. And I realized I was a coward, and that is so difficult to bring into understanding because when you discover the truth that you are a coward, it takes away who you are as a man. And so that moment wasn't necessarily a rock bottom, but it was an awakening. It was like me looking at everything in my life and understanding that it was my fault, that I had created the life I was in, even though I came from the background I came from. And what I always tell people is that the next 4 years of my life were the hardest 4 years of my life. Because if you don't want to be a coward, you've got to go and clean up the messes you've made. You've got to acknowledge your truth. You've got to create a new system of understanding of who you are. You've got to walk a new path. You've got to get off the drugs and the alcohol and the girls and the food and get in shape and quit smoking, go to therapy and get a coach and leave the city you grew up in and take risks. You got to become a man, right? And I'm not saying that in this literal like male slash female, it's different. I'm just saying like you've got to be willing to become who you are. This applies across the board. For me as a man, I can only speak as a man, but I'm sure women will probably understand what I'm saying. You, if you live life as a coward, every moment is a rock bottom.
Where does forgiveness come in? Did you have to realize, like you said, you had to uh, realize that you'd essentially failed yourself. This was your fault. You have to forgive yourself to move forward. Or and what about uh, the all the negative influences in your life? Your mom, your stepdad. Was it necessary to forgive them, or how have you done that?
Yeah, you have to, man. And it sucks too because you know, having vitriol towards people, which I had for a long time, was an amazing fuel source. Anger, hatred, dark energy, dude, it catapulted me. It's what got me out of the hood. It's what got me into a $80,000 car and fresh suits all the time. Like, yo, there's something to like dark energy. Sometimes I tap into it when I'm really out of like integrity and I'm like, you got to pull your shit together. Right. But it's a fuel source that burns everything. Forgiveness to me, I mean, like, I look at it like this. My mother cut my finger off when I was 4 years old, right? It's discolored, multiple skin grafts. I can't feel it. It's all crooked. It's missing bone. It's like a whole weird situation, right? I have to look at that every day. It doesn't go away. It's not there. And I think about the reality of that pain being like a backpack full of bricks. And the question I just came up with one day, Aaron, I was like, how long are you going to carry this backpack, dude? You're going to hate your mother. You're going to hate your father. You're going to hate your stepdad. You're going to hate your grandma. You're going to hate the community. You're going to hate the teachers. You're going to hate your peers. You're going to blame all of them. And I came to realize forgiveness is for me. My mom died when I was 23. She OD'd. I hadn't talked to her in 5 years. To this day, the greatest choice I ever made in my life was the day I told my mother, I will never talk to you again. And what was so interesting, especially what is so interesting, especially looking back, is I've forgiven her for everything, man. I go, fuck, I would have hate to grow up the way you grew up, you know? I'd hated that. That sounds horrible. Knowing the stories, man, oh my God, I can't imagine. What am I supposed to do? Hate them forever? Carry that into my relationships, my friendships, my family, my future children? What am I gonna do? What are they gonna, where's grandma at? Oh, she's dead. I hate her so much. I'm glad she's dead. What is that? What are we doing? Right. And it's hard because it's like, how do you forgive the people that hurt you the most? Well, one day at a time, really. And then recognizing that you are a fallible human as well. I would hope that people can, and will forgive me for some of the atrocities I've done. Aaron, I've done horrible things to people. When I was a kid, man, when I'm 16, 17, I'm in the streets, I'm carrying guns, I'm stealing cars, I'm breaking into people's houses, we're hurting people. Not to mention all the women who I hurt when I was in my 20s, not to mention all the people I probably hurt today, just inadvertently, just because of the human experience. My brothers, my sister, right? Well, God, I would hope that they would allow me forgiveness. And today, I just let it go, man. Control your emotions and control your life. And when you understand truly, the reason I brought up, I want to close the loop on this. The reason I brought up that my mother was dead is because I had forgiven her, but it doesn't mean I needed to talk to her again. And that's where people get stuck.
I've heard it said, forgive, but don't forget. So you let go of the pain, but you don't remember. You don't forget what it felt like. It's like a scar that's healed over. You don't want to reopen it, or if it's caused by someone else. Of course, you don't want to leave yourself vulnerable to the same kind of attack twice. So you let go of that pain, uh, and take the steps to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So you went to war on yourself or with yourself. How did you do this? What were the first steps out of this self-induced cycle of pain and loathing? Where did you start?
Initially, it was standing in front of that mirror and calling myself every bad word in the book. It was me. It was acknowledgement for me. And I understand this isn't going to work for everybody, but for me, I needed it. I literally stood in that front of the mirror. I was like, "You fat fucking loser, you piece of shit, you all." I had Aaron. I had to. I just had to, right? And I'm not saying everyone should subscribe to this beginning of a healing journey, but it was acknowledgement. And I think acknowledgement is the most important part of it, is taking a really hard look at your choices and your decisions and then doing something about it. And then from there, it was like, okay, can I go and be honest in therapy? I was going to this therapist, paying this dude hundreds of dollars a week and just lying the whole time. Part of that was fear of judgment, of shame, of guilt, even in the place that is supposed to be the place you can talk about this. Because I was so ashamed of the abuse of my mother and being molested and being homeless and being, all the things that I went through. I was like, I can't talk about this stuff. I'll just go make it up. And I was like, the old adage, the truth will set you free, is true. And so I needed to set myself free. I started telling the truth. I started doing the things that I needed to do to break myself free of the past. And then, again, the this thing about these 4 years, right? 26 to 30 were so hard because I was breaking the habits of who I was. And that's it. And that's so much of the journey, is like, you've got to be willing. I started writing down who I wanted to be. Just every day I would write and write and write and write and write and be like, this is who I want to be. This is what I'm going to do. These are my goals. This is my to do. And what's interesting too, I had people laugh at me. I had my own friends and my own peers at that time tell me I was stupid, tell me that I was crazy, tell me that I shouldn't do the things that I wanted to do. So I had to evaluate my community. I started getting rid of people I knew for a decade. Bye, you're out. And then I had to do that with my own habits, with my own personality traits. I had to do that with my energy and my effort. And one of the things that I think is so difficult is in that time frame. And this is one of the things I really help people in, is I help people learn how to stand up for themselves, to let go of self-doubt and to be confident. And the secret to all of that is you have to do hard shit. And Aaron, that's what I started doing, man. I just started doing hard shit every day. Every day. I still do. Man, I did not want to go to the gym this morning. Like, did not. It was leg day, bro. I did not want to go to the gym, but I did, because I love not being 350 pounds. I love it. It's so great. Right? It really is. I love fitting into clothes. I love that I can go shopping. I love that I look good. I love that I feel healthy, right? And it's all just a psychological game you're playing with yourself. People make a huge mistake and they try to 180 their life. They try to do a complete overnight turnaround of who they are, not recognizing the somatic impact of the past is the thing that keeps them stuck. Your habits are habitual and they are built into your physiology, right? And so, effectively, like, here's one of the things. Think Unbroken is this whole concept and idea that I've created over the years. In order to be unbroken, you have to break yourself down first. You have to break yourself down into a fervent understanding of who it is that you are and why you are the way you are. So then you now have a path. Because if you do not have a path of understanding, you have nothing to work against, right? We all need a baseline, because the baseline is the point of measurement. right? You can look at your life and create a point of measurement. But you need future markers that are not necessarily a decade away, but today and tomorrow. That way you can start to build the confidence that you have in your ability to believe that you are capable of doing what you say you're going to do. And then doing what you say you're going to do is framed against the baseline of where you started. And so I always encourage people to do this. This is what I did. And this is probably one of the few reasons that I can look at from a tactical standpoint that anyone can do pretty much regardless of circumstance. I mean, obviously there's some variables, so that's a broad stroke generalization. But I think that it begins with this. You sit down and you create 3 goals in your life that you can state in a sentence that you can accomplish within 1 month. And you create a goal in your health, a goal in your wealth, and a goal in your relationship. And you focused all of your attention on those 3 goals. And again, these goals need to be able to be said in a sentence. People make their goals way too complicated. But if you're at the beginning, what's a simple goal at the beginning? If you're at rock bottom, I'm going to go for a walk for 25 minutes every day, no matter what. 30 days. That's my month goal. That's health, wealth. I'm going to save $100 so I can buy myself a new shirt that will fit me better after my 30 days of walking. Relationships. Twice a week, one of my friends or my partner or someone that I don't know is going to go on a walk with me. That's attainable, man. You can do that. And if you do that, you will believe in yourself a little bit more every single day because you're proving to yourself, especially on the days that you don't want to, that it doesn't matter what you want to do. Life is not about what you want. Life is about doing what is required. And if you're capable of doing what is required, you will see your life change. And so I tell everyone, you take one step towards each one of these goals every day. You have 3 goals, 3 steps a day. If you take 3 steps a day over the course of a year, that's over 1,000 steps. And brother, you can't tell me that you won't be 1,000 steps away from where you began.
Yeah, I'm just flashing back to my own journey well before the injury when I got kicked out of college the second time. Uh, I tell people I lost my freshman 50 uh, just walking. I completely changed venues. Left Ohio and the Midwest. I moved out to California, and just all new friends, all new situation, all of that. Got a job and walked to work every single day, and it transformed at least in my body. And I was working on the other stuff too, and I joined the military, and within I think it was about 8 months from leaving college, I dropped about 65 pounds. I went from, I think it was 230 to about 165, and I hadn't weighed that since middle school. Uh, I'm just picturing your own journey. How great that must have felt along the way. And as difficult as it is, it probably felt all that much better too, as you saw the compounding effect start to work.
Yeah. Well, the thing that felt the best was believing in myself. I'm sure you resonate with that because you wake up one day and you look at your life and you're like, oh shit, I'm me. Dude, there's no better feeling than that. That is the feeling that we are all seeking.
I wanted to mention though, there's an interesting dichotomy. What you said earlier is about how you hate being told what to do. Then you also said you didn't have that person slapping you in the face and telling you you were screwing up. Yeah, get your act together. And maybe it's in the delivery, but it's about who we have around us influencing us. And I think it's so much more powerful than we realize. Is that even though we're not being told explicitly, what to do, maybe some helpful suggestions and the right mentors, the right friends showing you or suggesting, how to do it the right way. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, when I look at the mentors in my life, they're people I paid to help me because I want their help. They're not telling me what to do. I'm sitting across from them and I'm saying, this is where I'm at. I see what you've done. I want to do what you are doing. Show me the path. That's it. If you just come at me and you're like, you must do this, and I didn't ask for your help, I'm throwing that in the trash. I don't want to hear it. Because you can't, it's, I guess, it's, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink kind of mentality. People have to want what you have to say. I have to want Aaron's advice. You can't just be like, hey, Michael, you should wear a different kind of glasses. I'm like, shut up. Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, I don't think many are receptive to random people coming up to you and saying, you need to do this. Uh,
Yeah.
so when did it dawn on you that you had something you needed to share and that you could help influence others on their own path?
Man, I did not see any of this coming. No, I did not. No, I'm a writer first. I was just writing. And I had people who would reach out to me and they would ask me if I would help them. And I would tell them, no, absolutely not. What are you talking? Life coach? I don't want to do that. Go figure. I'm just trying to figure out my own life. And I just had some people who were adamant and they're like, no, seriously, I need you to help me. I'm asking you if you will help me. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens. But if your life gets worse, it's your fault because I told you no. And then, 8 years later, it's thousands of people coming through the programs. It's millions of people listening to the podcast. It's thousands of books sold. It's more plane trips and standing on stages than I can ever begin to count. And it's because what I do is very simple. I just tell people the truth. That's it. Sometimes that truth is harsh because it is not sugar coated. Maybe I need to put a little honey on it sometimes, but generally it's like right in your face because that's what people need. And I think we have come to a society where we are too soft with each other. And it's not that I don't have softness because you have to, because it's human. I'm saying too soft, right? This is why, even though I probably wouldn't have taken kindly to it, I really did need someone to be like, dude, what are you doing? Right. And I think that's what's missing in our society right now. But the path to this moment, like I'm having with you, I never would have imagined. Never, not in a million years would I be like, people are going to pay me to help them and they're going to pay me to, go travel the world and they're going to pay me to speak. And especially at the beginning, nobody paid me. So let's be very clear about that. Right. And it's, I think the biggest thing is I know that people believe in what I do because I have just shown them what is possible. That's all. Same reason I have a mentor, because I've seen what he has done and I want it. Like I'll give you an example. I don't have kids and I'm not married yet. I will be. It's one of my big goals. The first thing I'm going to do, Aaron, is I'm going to hire a coach to help me know how to be married and have kids. One, I don't have a model for it. Right? And two, I know that a man, how long have you been married, Aaron? How long have you been married?
We've been married for 8 years.
8 years. You have kids. You had twins who are 5. Do you have more kids?
A 13-year-old from previous marriage.
Okay. So you have 13 years of experience as a dad and 8 years of experience as a husband, and I have 0. Why would I not go and get help from you? And when people recognize that and they understand that all you need to do is learn from people who has expertise, and it will make your life easier and shortcut the time and the ignorance tax that you have to pay, your life will change sooner.
It works for business. It works for athletics. Why wouldn't it work for life and relationships and other aspects of your world?
Yeah. And it does. But you have to be coachable. You have to really want it.
Hmm.
Nobody I have never come and knocked on anyone's door in my life and be like, "Hey man, you had childhood trauma. Do you want to coach?" That has never happened once. It might work. I should hire a bunch of people to go knock doors all day and see if that works. But the reality is you've got to want it. You've got to seek it. And as they say, when you seek, you will find. It's in the Bible for a reason. It's true. You will find whatever you want in life. And sometimes you need help. Sometimes you need support. Sometimes you need somebody to come and be there with you and walk down the darkest path of your life so you can come out the other side. And that's all I do. And I never thought I would do it. And it's unbelievable, the transformations and the stories of the people I work with, the breakthroughs, the awakenings. Man, I had a woman who recently, she was on the verge of divorce and she was about to lose her family and she was about to lose her career and her health was trash. And I worked with her for 6 months, man. We're not even talking about that long. 6 months, fixed her marriage, fixed her health, got a promotion, fixed the problems with the kids. Why? Because we got to the root of it. We understood, we learned the baseline, right? I'm working with another guy. His entire life was dedicated to doing exactly what his parents wanted him to do. He grew up in an Asian culture. He worked the career they wanted, married the girl that they wanted, did all the dude. He was 40 years old, still wearing the clothes that his parents wanted him to wear, right? Got to the root cause of that. That's not a thing anymore. Right. And so like for me as a coach, that's what we do. Effectively, I help people overcome self-doubt because of the trauma that they've been through and build the courage to be the person that they know they're capable of being.
I don't know. My dad is quite the sartorial man, so I'll take his fashion fashion influence anytime.
Yeah, man, I saw some pictures of you. You are a well-dressed man. I will
Thank
give
you.
you that.
That's also because I listen to my wife.
Yeah, that's helpful too.
Well, we're going kind of long here, and I respect your time. Uh, I want to ask you a couple final questions. We'll call it the countdown to impact. There's three resources, whether they're books, podcasts, whatever they are, three resources, two quotes or um, maybe lessons learned, and one person that had an impact in your life.
Mm. Man, damn, you're good at this. I love this. Dude, Aaron, I'm going to say this because I want your listeners to hear this too. I have been interviewed at least 400 times on podcasts alone. I myself have recorded over 800 podcasts. This is the best podcast I've ever done. You're phenomenal. So just huge gratitude to you, man.
Wow, thank you.
Um, three resources. One, I think in order to have resources, you need to have clarity. So you need to understand where you're going first. So get clarity so that, and I tell my clients this, a ship without a compass will land on any island. You need to have clarity about what you want before you go seeking help for it. So once you have that, then it's really about this. Here, I'll give you the number one resource that you need. It's called money. Invest it in yourself with the person who will help you do the thing you're trying to do. Money, time. You are going to have to invest way more time into the thing that you want to do than you could ever begin to believe. It's so crazy to me how often I'm like, oh yeah, this will take a week. And then it takes me like 4 years, right? Because it's just like there's a process to it. So money, time, and then three is energy, because you need momentum, and momentum requires energy. And so you're going to have to continue to put your effort into the resource. And so while some people will say podcast or book or this or that, I think it's time. I think it's time. I think it's money, and I think it's energy. So those are my three quotes. Man, there's so many incredible quotes that I think
I just
about.
gave one.
One is from Tom. Thanks. One is from Tom Bilyeu, who's been a mentor of mine for a very long time. He started Impact Theory and sold Quest Nutrition for $1 billion. Um, Tom has this amazing quote, and it's, "The struggle is guaranteed, the success is not. So you should pursue things in life that you enjoy."
Love it.
And that feels like so true to me. And then one from Kobe, who is one of my inspirations, a man who, man, you talk about like greatness, and it's like he was taken because he was supposed to be, and that was his timeline. But my God, what that dude accomplished is unreal. Not even just basketball. He won an Oscar. It's crazy. Wrote all these children's books. Crazy. Was about to build one of the biggest media companies ever. It was unbelievable. And he said, when you're winning, nothing else matters. Now, people, I believe, would misinterpret that as this idea that winning is about sport. What I think he was saying, and obviously this is just my own conjecture because he's not here and I can't ask him. What I think he was saying is that winning is about living the life that you want to live. That's why nothing else matters.
That's fantastic. I think to me, it sounded just like you mentioned before, they both relate to momentum. When you're winning,
Mm-hmm.
those things that might have tripped you up or slowed you down don't matter as much because you've got that momentum. At least that's kind of how I read it. But that's
No,
fantastic. How about
I think that's a great interpretation.
that one person that made an impact in your life?
Man, to be honest with you, I think it's unfair to narrow it down to one person. I'm telling you, man, I've asked for help from so many people. I can't even begin. Um, I'm gonna do something unorthodox here. I'm gonna pull a Snoop Dogg, and I'm gonna pick me, because here's why. I had to do the work to get here, man. I had the most impact on my life because even when my life sucked, I had the most impact on my life. And that's me. Maybe I'm being a little facetious in that because I don't want to pick anyone because it feels unfair. But like truly, and I mean this genuinely, like, if you don't believe in yourself, man, nobody's going to. They're just not. As selfish as it might sound until you understand what I'm about to say, you have to choose you first. You just have to.
Well, no one's going to do the work for you, right?
That's right.
Michael, this was an incredible interview from my side as well. So thank you so much. If our audience wants to find out more about you, get in touch, just you know, connect, how can they do that?
Yeah. I'm everywhere on social at Michael Unbroken. You can reach out, and I literally this is true. I give copies of my book away every single day. If you just go to thinkunbrokenbook.com, I will literally send you a physical copy of my book if you're in the US. Because like one time somebody from Australia ordered one and the shipping was $37. And I was like, oh my God. So we'll send you a PDF if you're international, but if you're in the US, I'll send you a copy of my book for free if you go to thinkunbrokenbook.com.
There's a reason I'll only send our chocolate from the we've got a fudge company uh, to the lower 48. You can't guarantee that around to Australia. But thank you so much, Mike. And I really appreciate you sharing your time and your experiences with me and the Point of Impact audience. Take care.
I appreciate you.